September 28th, 2023. It's Mr. Raj Srinath's last committee meeting, so let's make it a good one.
Thank you. Yes, it'll be a good one.
All right. First item on the agenda is approval of the August 24th, 2023 Business Management Committee meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion and a second for approval. Properly moved and seconded. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Let's go ahead and vote. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing a modification in contractual authorization for Occupational Medical Services Program, RFP P38752-A. Phyllis Walker, Senior Manager, Occupational Medical Services. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Durrett, Ms. Williamson, Mr. Srinath, Mr. Greenwood, and members of the committee. This is a resolution authorizing a modification to the contract for additional funds for occupational medical services, P38752A. Next slide. Occupational medical services is a comprehensive set of programs designed to ensure workers are fit for duty and protects employees, passengers, and public from safety risks on a daily basis. The services included in this program are crucial to supporting the authority's mission, people taking people where they want to go today and tomorrow, as occupational medical services ensures workers are physically and mentally fit as well from drugs and alcohol. MARTA has established testing protocols for physical examinations, including applicant candidates who are seeking employment, which are pre-employment post-office examinations, DOT medical recertifications, employees returning to work after 90+ calendar days, and specialty examinations based upon job functions and/or safety criteria requiring evaluations or consultations. Next slide. This contract, P38752A, includes services which support the requirement for MARTA to maintain a Federal Transit Administration compliant drug and alcohol program. Per FTA regulations, we are required to test a minimum of 50% of our safety-sensitive population for drugs and 10% for alcohol. We must ensure that our employees who exhibit certain signs, symptoms, behavior, odor, and physical appearance are tested under reasonable suspicion guidelines. Those involved in vehicle accidents, which meet certain threshold criteria, must be tested. And a credentialed medical review officer initiates the MRO verification process for employees with positive drug tests. Next slide. During the life cycle of this contract, approximately 24,983 various physicals and specialty examinations have been conducted, and approximately 40,607 drug and alcohol tests across all test types that were just mentioned have also been performed. Again, these services have a goal of promoting a safe and fit workforce for the system's passengers and public. Next slide. The current contract value is $1,831,939.42. The additional funds requested, $163,746. The new contract amount, $1,995,000 $685.42. The current contract expires February the 28th of 2024. This contract modification is for an additional 4 months, which will extend from March the 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2024. This will allow for sunsetting of the contract in fiscal year 25 with an opportunity to engage in a new contract within the next fiscal year. Next slide. This extension will allot a time to solicit for a new, comprehensive, innovative proposal, which will be a best fit for MARTA's future occupational medical service program needs based upon the current Atlanta market. Next slide. I respectfully request the board's approval of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion and a second to present this for consideration. Properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Mayor
Mr.
Floyd.
Chairman, MARTA require a drug test for application when you apply for a job.
Yes, particularly depending on the position that you're applying for. There are a lot of positions that are safety sensitive, that's a given, and those ones, by the way, are subject to random drug tests as well. But everyone, myself included, on application was subject to testing.
Okay, I would have thought so, but has the list of drugs that are not allowed changed for any of the job applications?
I don't know, Phyllis, can you answer that?
Certainly.
Thank you.
The question was regarding the drug test types. We utilize the DOT-5 panel that includes marijuana, cocaine, PCP, amphetamines, and cocaine. So it's a DOT-5 panel.
Okay, so in Georgia, that hadn't, in the legalization of marijuana to some extent, hadn't changed somebody tests positive for one of those, are they thrown out of the application process? Or?
That's correct. The FTA still finds that marijuana, even in states that have approved it, whether recreational or medicinal, is still FTA, and it is not permitted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one,
Okay.
Chairman Durrett. Just a couple. So help me understand the contract. It's, this is an extension, so you said that it's going to extend it to 2024, but you plan to put a bid in for 2025?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal
So
year, okay.
fiscal year,
2025.
fiscal year
Okay, that
25.
would make sense. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and cast our votes. Okay, the resolution passes. All right, let's talk about 2025 then. The next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of occupational medical services for the next fiscal year, RFP P50399. Ms. Walker, the floor is yours.
Good morning again, Chairman Durrett, Ms. Williamson, Mr. Srinath, Mr. Greenwood, and members of the committee. This is a resolution authorizing solicitation of proposals for occupational medical services, RFP 50399. Next slide. The background and necessity of the Occupational Medical Services Program have been established for you in the previous presentation. This solicitation of proposals is to identify and establish a partnership based upon MARTA's current and future testing needs. Additionally, it will continue supporting compliance of the drug and alcohol testing program. Next slide. The estimated value of RFP P50399 is $2.8 million. The contract term will be a 3-year base with 2 one-year options. The term will cover July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2029. Next slide. I respectfully request the board's approval of this resolution authorizing solicitation of proposals for occupational medical services, RFP P50399. Thank you.
Entertain a motion and a second. Properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Bill, I feel compelled to let you know that you do not have to undergo drug testing. Okay? All right.
You know what drugs you're looking for.
Yeah.
Correction, I was reflecting against, I'm in favor.
Very good. So we'll go ahead and vote. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda will be brought to us by Kevin Hurley. It's a resolution authorizing a modification in contractual authorization for sales tax forecasting, something that's very important to us, LOA L47514. Mr. Hurley.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Durrett, Vice Chair Williamson, members of the Business Management Committee, Mr. Greenwood and Mr. Srinath. I'm here today to present to the Business Management Committee a request for a modification and extension of contract L47514 for sales tax forecasting with the Georgia State University Economic Forecasting Center. Next slide. Our agenda consists of some background into the contract, discussion on the current contract and the proposed extension, and then staff's recommendation. Next slide. The sales tax forecast provided by the Georgia State University Economic Forecasting Center is used as the baseline for MARTA's operating and capital budgets and the 5-year operating and 10-year capital plans. As you know, sales tax is MARTA's largest single source of revenue at about 57% of our total revenues. Furthermore, the sales tax forecast is used to support MARTA's issuance of bonds to fund the capital improvement program as the primary source of funds to repay the principal and interest on our debt. The sales tax pledged to the bonds is inclusive of distributions from Clayton, DeKalb, and Fulton counties, as well as the city of Atlanta. Some additional benefits of the contract include the use of a reputable independent third party as our forecaster. The forecasts are provided as disclosure information and are posted on the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board website to support market research by potential investors, as well as providing key information for rating agency reviews that determine MARTA's creditworthiness. Next slide. MARTA and the Georgia State University Economic Forecasting Center have had a relationship for over 30 years, since the issuance of our Series M bonds back in 1991. That even predates my time here at MARTA. The leadership of the Forecasting Center has been stable and consistent, with only 2 directors since its inception. Both directors have received numerous awards and honors for their forecasting acumen. The current contract expires in December of 2023 and had an original contract value of $150,000. The proposed modification is for an additional $295,000 and an extension of 2 years for a total not to exceed contract value of $445,000. The contract allows for annual sponsorships and annual forecasts, mid-year forecasts, and major model revisions if needed. And what I mean by major model revisions is if we have an additional jurisdiction that would like to join MARTA, Georgia State would have to update their modeling to incorporate any sales tax distributions from those other entities. The contract value is based on anticipated usage as mid-year forecasts and model revisions may or may not be required. What I mean by this is we've put an estimate together in the event we have to do a couple of mid-year revisions or model update. So those costs are included in the $445,000. Next slide, please. With that, staff respectfully request the approval of the MARTA Business Management Committee for the modification and extension to contract L47514 for sales tax forecasting for a not to exceed contract amount of $445,000.
Thank you, Kevin. I'll entertain a motion and a second to put this resolution before us. Properly moved and seconded. Any questions for Kevin? Who was quicker?
Okay. Just a couple questions, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
So this extension is for 2 years, so 295,000 is just for the 2 years?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right? And then what happens after the 2 years? Do we go back out and look for someone else to do forecasting, or have we been so comfortable with this particular entity that we?
It's a comfort from MARTA, but it's also a comfort for the marketplace. This is used, as I described earlier, for support for the bond issuances. And the bond market, the capital markets, recognize Georgia State. They're comfortable with Georgia State's forecasts and the director that leads that effort. And so to change it is something that we typically would not try to do unless the pricing was very out of character.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, do we track their forecast against what actually happened?
Yes, sir, we certainly do.
I mean, since 91, so we would have a chart somewhere that would show us what they forecast for a particular.
Yes, sir, we track their accuracy, performance.
Is that something you can share with us?
Yes, sir, I can certainly
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
give you a chart.
And when they do you said they did an annual and a mid-year and a as needed.
We
of
we request an annual sales tax forecast when we move into the budget process. So we'll get a new forecast. Our last forecast was from January of 2023. We'll request another one to be delivered in January of 2024 for our budget process. And then if we're monitoring, when we're monitoring, if we see a disparity in what the forecast presents as to actual performance, we'll go back and ask them to adjust their forecast during the year at some point. In my time here, we've done that 2, maybe 3 times. Majority of, and that's, say, COVID happened. So we went back and had them adjust. So it's usually something significant that
When they
drives
give
it.
when they give you a forecast, Kevin, do they give it to you on a month? I mean, it's an annual forecast, but is it, we think this month's gonna be this much, this month's gonna be this much?
They break it out for us quarterly. We spread it internally. We take those quarters and spread them over 3 months. Each quarter gets spread over 3 months, and we use that based on we do that based on historic performance.
Okay, and do you know how what are the tools they use to do this forecast without, 25 words or less?
Bill, did you say you had to leave by noon? Okay.
Yeah, it looks at all aspects of business within the city of Atlanta: tourism, housing, sales, costs of fuel. They look, for the city of Atlanta, they compare it to different sales tax estimates that have been provided. So there's a great number of entries that go into their modeling.
Okay, and what does the state use to forecast their sales tax revenue?
I'm not positive what the state
If
uses.
I may,
Yeah, right.
the state also, from what I understand, at the last meeting, think our GDOT Commissioner Russell, opined that state also uses GSU. That's one. And the second thing, each month we provide to this committee and the board actual versus budget on the sales tax. In fact, it's in your packet for the month of July now. Since I'm on that subject now, in July, our actuals exceeded their forecast.
Okay, and the last question I have is what do we use? We get this forecast when we're applying the budget. Do we use that number, or do we say, okay, we're going to be a little more conservative, or we're going to be a little more progressive about it? How do we use this information in preparing a budget?
I can answer that. We use their forecast. We do not deviate from that. At least the 3 years I've been here, we have been using their forecast because it's, Kevin mentioned this, whenever we go to issue bonds, whether it's refinancing or new money bonds, they look for a forecast. We can tell them it's based on Raj Srinath's forecast. That wouldn't have the same value as saying it's from GSU. And the rating agencies, most importantly, use their forecast to determine what our rating should be and what it could be, both historical, current, and the future. So we use their forecast. We try not to deviate. If we have any questions, we go back to them. Yeah, in fact, we did that. I joined MARTA in January of 2021. The same month, I did have a talk with GSU because our actuals were trending very differently than the forecast, so we asked them to do a refresh. That was because of COVID. They were off in their forecast. They did that, and we got a new forecast in February, and since then, every year we have been getting one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and vote.
One last quick question, and I meant to ask, do you get this forecast broken down by location?
No, sir. It's,
Just for the 3 counties and the city, it's one lump sum number.
yes, it's one lump sum.
Is that information available?
We can certainly share the forecast, but the breaking it out by location is not available from their model.
Okay.
And nor is it available from the Department of Revenue. Like, I couldn't tell you how much Fulton County,
Yeah, I
DeKalb
know
County.
that, because we've argued with the state over the years about breaking it down by city.
Hey, Bill?
Yeah.
Resolution's passed, just letting you
No,
know.
I'm in the informational stage now. But, and they don't want to do it, and we've always assumed they don't want to do it because they don't want to know where the money's coming from, or if they know, they don't want to share it with us as a city. So I was wondering, and I think in line with some of the discussions we've had with the city of Atlanta, whether there's a forecast, a reliable forecast on what the city of Atlanta revenues are going to be for the next year.
I can make a brief comment on that. In their model, as Kevin said, it's overall tax revenues. However, they do make a statement in their model that the assumptions they have used for the city of Atlanta taxes, and by the way, their report is public information.
Right.
It's definitely on our website because whenever we do an official statement for the bonds, it's part of that. It's one of the appendices for the bond official statement, so it's public information. So they do make a statement how they estimate or what their assumptions are to come up with the city's sales tax. I mean, we can certainly, as I said, it's public information.
As I said, the resolution passes. The last item on the agenda is other matters. Information only in your packet, fiscal year 24 July consolidated financial highlights and KPIs. So with that, the Business Management Committee comes to a close, and because of the board members who are here in the different committees, Peter, I think we need to perhaps take the next 2 committees out of order and do operations and safety first, because there is a quorum here of the members. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. We advertised all of them at the same time to start at 9:30, so we're okay if we have to shift them around. We're still missing a few in the PCP, so.
Okay. So Bill, you're going to be up here.
He had a funeral, and we expect him here soon, but I'll go ahead until such time as he arrives. So I'd like to call to order the Operations and Safety Committee meeting for Thursday, September 28th, 2023. The first item on the agenda today is the approval of the August 24th, 2023 Operations and Safety Committee meetings. Is there a motion for adoption of the minutes? I hear a motion for adoption of the minutes. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote. Are we voting here? So, okay. Okay. That's what it says. Oh. Yeah, I think she did, yeah. Okay, so the minutes are adopted. I think, okay. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing a modification in contractual authorization for AC wheel axle overhaul and repair services. IFB B36 724, Etheridge Spencer, Program Manager, Railcar Maintenance. Mr. Spencer, please.
Good morning, Vice Chair Floyd, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. McKinney, and members of the Operation and Safety Committee. My name is Etheridge Spencer, and I'm the Railcar Program Maintenance Manager. May I direct your attention to agenda item number 2. This is a resolution authorizing a modification in contractual authorization for AC wheel axle overhauls and repair services, IFB 36724. Next slide, please. I will speak to these areas and present the resolution for consideration. Next slide, please. The requested resolution authorizes the general manager, CEO, or his delegate to increase the authorization by $1,772,521 for the modification and contractual authorization of AC wheel axle set overhaul and repair services with UTC RAS Inc. for a total amount of $11,200,682. This is funded by local operating and capital funds from the approved fiscal year 2024 budget. Next slide, please. The wheel and axle assembly constitutes one of the critical integral components of the CQ 310, 311, and CQ 312 rail vehicles, and as such requires regular inspection and repair and/or overhaul. Wheels are under constant wear and tear, and under the most favorable conditions require rework approximately every 500,000 miles. Well-maintained wheels ensure longer rail car life and a smooth and comfortable ride for MARTA customers. This contract involves overhaul, repair, and testing of the AdTrans gear units for the authority's revenue free. This work also includes repairs of axle bearing seats, replacements of wheels and axles, journal bearings, gearbox seals, and ground rings. Excuse me. The increased funding will enable the authority to continue to keep the wheel and axle assemblies in serviceable condition. The services furnished under this contract will maintain adequate quantities of spare components to support the daily maintenance demands and will supplement the preventative maintenance, which is our life cycle and reliability enhancement, the L-Care schedule. This will ensure that the rail vehicle meets the daily available requirements for revenue service. Excuse me. Life cycle asset reliability enhancement is an in-house rail car component rebuild and replacement program developed to follow the original equipment manufacturer recommendations. The program objective is to promote full use of the asset through its useful life. This includes truck rebuilds, which includes the replacement of wheel sets, comprising of wheels, axles, and refurbishing of gearboxes. Items such as wheel sets require external outsourcing. The L-Care is a part of our sustainability process that will support revenue readiness of the current fleet until the transition to the new rail cars. Under normal circumstances, this modification request would not be necessary while the new IFB is being implemented. However, because of previous and current supply chain issues, specifically delays in obtaining materials with lead times as long as 9 months, this is a proactive approach to allow the execution of the new IFB in order to assure continuity of availability of material required to support fleet maintenance without interruption. Next slide, please. This additional funding will allow the existing contract to remain in place while the new contract is awarded and the supply chain is established. This does not affect the original DBE requirements of 20%. Internal audit will perform an analysis to determine fair and reasonableness. Next slide, please. At this time, I'm requesting the committee recommend to the full MARTA board to increase the authorization by $1,772,521 for the procurement of AC wheel set overhaul and repair services with UTC RAS Inc. for the total authorization of $11,200,682. Vice Chairman Floyd, I will turn it back over to you for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Is there a motion for adoption of this resolution? There is a motion and a second. Okay. So any questions for Mr. Spencer? Frida?
So this additional funding is for how long?
For the current year,
For the remainder of the current fiscal year?
yes, fiscal year
All right,
2024.
thank you.
Rod?
Yes, I have had a chance to visit the shop floor and watch some of this process. So are some of these things still being done in-house?
Not the wheel and axle set rebuilds. The rest of the truck rebuilds are done in-house, but the wheel
Okay.
and axle sets has to be outsourced.
All right. And so after this is done, after this year contract is up, does all this change with the new technology that's going to happen with the new trains, or is this something we'll be doing as long as we?
With the new trains, the wheel sets are still, they're similar, but not exactly the same. However, we'll have to outsource them to do the maintenance when it's required.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Please vote. All right, so the motion passed. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing a modification in contractual authorization for train control and SCADA systems upgrade, RFP P15120. Daniel Hike.
Hey, good morning, Mr.
Morning,
Floyd,
Daniel.
Mr. Greenwood, Mr. McKinney. My name is Daniel Hecht. I'm the Deputy Chief Mechanical Officer, and I'll be speaking about the train control and SCADA system upgrade project. Next slide, please. So quick background on the train control and SCADA upgrade project. On the left, you see the major subsystems and the percent completed to date. On the right is a map of our system. This shows all of our train control rooms, the 3 yards in our control centers. And of note, every one of these were modified and upgraded as part of this project, along with 314 of our rail cars. Of note, the project's nearing completion. All rail lines and yards have been operating on the new system, and Alstom completed availability demonstration testing in December of 2022, which was a major milestone in this project. Next slide, please. Here's a roadmap of the overall project. This started back in 2010, but the major milestones were the east-west line and our new integrated operations control center were completed in 2017. The north-south line in 2019, and again, the AD testing in December of last year. We expect the project baseline deliverables to be complete by December of this year, after which we will start a 1-year warranty period to run from January to December of 2024. The board may remember 2 briefings. The first is a settlement agreement that MARTA and Alstom reached in February of 2022, and recently Change Order 9, which was a no-cost change order to the contract in March of 2023. As part of the settlement agreement, MARTA agreed to enter into a 5-year maintenance contract with Alstom to run from project completion for 5 years, starting in, our target is January of 2024, ending in December of 2028. Next slide, please. So here's a photo of one of the elements we received as part of this project. On the left is the old rail control center at Avondale, and on the right is the current rail control center at Chambly. And it's difficult to tell in this photo, but the control center on the left, those are actually like lines painted on a blackboard with light bulbs that had to be changed out. On the right, it's fully digital, fully configurable, state-of-the-art. In fact, we have quite a few transit agencies from around the country come and visit our new rail control center for best practices. Next slide, please. So on the current status, again, Alstom will complete core project deliverables by December of this year. There's a few deliverables that will be completed during the warranty phase. These are system admin training, as-built documentation, lower priority system functions, and some software management tools. MARTA is withholding payments on these until those deliverables are complete and the warranty terms remain unchanged. And as I mentioned, per the settlement agreement, MARTA will exercise maintenance option 1. Next slide, please. So what is maintenance option 1? This is a 5-year maintenance contract the best way to think of it is it consists of 3 buckets. Maintenance bucket 1 was the base maintenance option spelled out in the original contract in 2010. And this primarily consists of a hardware and software refresh in our control centers, our yards, and our field, including the design, analysis of options, the cybersecurity updates, installation, testing, optimization, and commissioning. A lot of the hardware that we have was installed 2015, 2017, 2019, it's due for a refresh. So we anticipated that in the base contract, and that's what the bucket 1 is addressing. Maintenance bucket 2 is system administration. This is 24/7 support with dedicated on-site staff from Alstom and ongoing system change management, including train control and SCADA updates, engineering changes, software patches, and improvements. This is primarily why I'm here today, to talk about maintenance bucket 2, the system administration. Maintenance bucket 3 is large-scale system enhancements. These include major modifications to train control and SCADA for the large-scale projects such as CQ400, the new car implementation, the Brookhaven crossover and test track, and the Bankhead platform extension. Both of those are physical configuration changes to the field and require updates to the train control and SCADA system as such. Next slide, please. So the maintenance option estimated budget for 5 years. Again, bucket 1, the hardware software refresh, was $12.05 million, and this is already board approved with the base contract. The system administration function is estimated at $12.39 million for 5 years. That is the additional request on the contract authorization today. And the large-scale system enhancements, the budget on that is based on the per project cost, and that will be funded by each respective capital program. So the total 5-year cost, $24.44 million. And of note, Alstom's cost proposal will go through MARTA's internal audit review for fairness and accuracy. Next slide, please. So the overall contract expenditure snapshot. The base contract value was $117 million, of which $110 million has been spent so far. Again, the maintenance option 1, $12.05 million, already board approved for the hardware software refresh. Including contract contingency, the board-approved value currently is $156.89 million. The additional ask for the system administration function under the maintenance option is $12.39 million, bringing the updated board-approved value to $169.28 million. Next slide, please. The Department of Operations respectfully requests a resolution for the modification of contractual authorization for P 15120 with Alstom Incorporated in the amount of $12,387,000 for a total contract authorization of $169,278,002. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion for adoption of this resolution? Is there a second? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions?
One question.
I'm sorry, Jacob?
Just a quick question. Of the contract that we've already gone through, what proportion of it is specific to the rail cars? And I just asked around, like, as we think about the refresh of the rail cars, like, obviously that's going to be an additional request that's going to come, but, like, what proportion of the overall contract is that?
Finance-wise, I'd have to get that information for you. It was a relatively small piece. It really focused on the operator display. We did some upgrades to that so that we can communicate more effectively between the control centers and the rail cars real time. The upgrades as part of this project will roll into the CQ400 fleet. That's built into the new car contract. So everything we did here will be mirrored in the new fleet as well.
Perfect.
They work together.
Thank you.
Rita?
You said you're here in regards to maintenance bucket 2.
Correct.
At this time, is the 24/7 support and the dedicated staff an addition as opposed to support at this time?
Yes, it's an additional support for the next 5 years. They have 24/7 support now as part of the contract, but that once the contract is accepted, then we still require that ongoing support and system changes for the next 5 years as well.
So we have it now, and this is for the continuation of the 5 years, not that we're adding it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Do you remember, and maybe, when we started this thing in 2010, when we anticipated being done with it?
The initial contract, I believe, was 5 years. This predates my time. This is a incredibly technically complex project that has been delayed for a few reasons. Happy to report that all of those barriers have been overcome in the last few years since the implementation in 2019 and the ongoing testing. So, yes, this project has been delayed numerous times.
Okay, but we're really bringing it to a close now, is
Correct.
that right?
Yep.
Because we're dealing no longer with the contract, now we're dealing with maintenance and upkeep of it, if you will. Is that
Yes,
Fair
yeah,
to
we,
say
we
that.
are 98% complete with the project. The remaining deliverables are things like documentation, and that is non-functional. We've had functional use of the system for a while, and it's been in use for many years now.
Are there additional financial discussions to have with Austin about closing out the contract?
Not negotiations per se. As they complete deliverables, we have, the contract funds that we pay them for the tasks that are completed.
Okay. All right, and I've not seen this. I was out there at that building a few years ago, I think, when they did. I would recommend that you offer to board members to go into that facility and look at this, because it is, I think what you've done out there is incredible, really, in the way you're keeping up with things and how we're going. And we're going to this, I forget what you all call that now, where we know what the cars are doing. Anyway, never mind, because I can't remember what
I'll talk about that on my next presentation, actually. So, yeah, communication-based train control.
There you go.
Yep.
That's what I was looking for. So anyway, I think it'd be nice to let all of us, and me included, to go out and just see what these folks out there do and how they do and what this all encompasses. So,
Absolutely. We'd be happy to host you all.
okay. And I'm sorry Russell's not here, because he could talk about how you all fast-tracked this project, because he's familiar with that at DOT about fast-tracking something that's supposed to take 5 years and takes 12 years or 13 years. So he's not here to appreciate that either. But okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Chair Ford, I have a question.
I'm
A
sorry.
comment. I've been out to the rail station a couple of times, and I tell you, it's very impressive, and we're very fortunate to have this current technology in place to manage our rail car transportation system. It really is, and to look at how far we've come from where it used to be. Most of the presentations, they show you the before and the after, and it is really amazing, and we're very fortunate, I say, and I'm glad to see that this system is working well, and that the staff are very comfortable with using it. At least they were very, very knowledgeable about the system and explained to us the things that were going with the rails, with the rail cars and the whole transportation system. So I think it's moving forward. So, all right, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, let's vote, please.
Next slide, please.
Usually tells me whether it's passed or not. I don't see that. Okay, all right, so the motion, well, last time it showed up there that it passed. There we go, all right, so it did pass. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of maintenance of way and operational support services, RFP P50405. Daniel?
Good morning again. This is a resolution authorizing solicitation for proposals for maintenance of way and operational support services. Next slide, please. So we currently have several system-wide initiatives in order to maintain state of repair across our aging infrastructure. And these initiatives ensure MARTA's operations run efficiently, effectively, and safely. MARTA's Mechanical Operations Division and our control centers that I just discussed are primarily dedicated to keeping the day-to-day operations running. And as such, we rely on project-specific support to assist in the delivery and initial operations of these various initiatives. We call this the stool that supports operations. We have 3 contracts with firms that offer support for us. The first is Rail Vehicle Engineering. This is currently awarded to Hatch LTK. They are assisting us with not only the new car procurement, but also with ongoing rehab programs and overhaul programs. The second is the Bus Vehicle Engineering Support Services. That is awarded to STV, and they help with bus procurements and charging infrastructure. The third is Maintenance of Way, Train Control, and Integrations Operations Control Support, and that is currently vacant for that contract to support specifically operations. Next slide, please. So here's an operational initiatives roadmap. I spoke to the train control and SCADA upgrade project, the top line in red there. I briefly mentioned the Brookhaven and the Bankhead extension projects that are ongoing. Since those require system changes in the field, trackway reconfiguration, there's some operational requirements associated with those, with testing, safety certification, working closely with Ralph's group on the opening of those improvements. We have an ongoing track circuit upgrade project. Of the 48 train control rooms that we have, 10 of them have outdated equipment that we are looking to upgrade. We are still working on our backup IOC center and doing some modifications to that, along with the CQ400 new rail cars. And then 3 other projects that are on the horizon: the EP&E enhancement program, the traction power substation upgrade program, and the big one in the room is the communication-based train control program. All of these require operations department personnel on behalf of MARTA to review submittals and other tasks, which I'll speak to on the next slide. So what does operational support services entail? The first is to supplement our operations control systems group, and this is MARTA staff or staff working on behalf of MARTA that run the train control center that I just spoke about. This is not Alstom, this is MARTA. This includes technical support for design reviews and submittals, testing and quality verification of the control systems, subject matter expertise on these control systems, and development of test plans, procedures, and review of those test plans and procedures. The second is program management for maintenance of way initiatives. These include, as I said, the electric power and equipment enhancement program, wayside vegetation and safety improvements, the track fastener replacement program, mapping of the overall track and structures capital program, and track allocation software implementation and optimization. And given the amount of work that operations and carries group and capital have on the right-of-way, the track allocation optimization becomes vital to the overall project delivery here at MARTA. The third is system enhancement support, and that's capital program coordination for all the large-scale upgrades, such as the CQ400 integration, the 2 projects I already spoke about, and communication-based train control, which is an institutional change for MARTA's operations. Next slide, please. So the estimated budget for this, base term of 5 years at $21.43 million to run from January of 24 to December of 2028 tentatively. 2 one-year extension options at estimated $4.3 million for a total 7-year estimated cost of $30 million. This work was previously done through various capital support contracts, so we're not asking for much new here. Typically, these fell under system engineering or infrastructure contracts, and what we want to do here is pull that into the operations where they can best support the operation of our system for these customer-focused enhancements. All this work is completed on a task order basis as needed by MARTA, and D&I will be assessing for DB&E opportunities during the solicitation process. Next slide, please. The Department of Operations respectfully requests a resolution authorizing solicitation of proposals for maintenance of way and operational support services in the estimated amount of $30 million for a 5-year contract base with 2 one-year options. I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there a motion for approval of this resolution? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion of Daniel? None, so we must all understand this pretty well. So, okay, hearing none, please vote. Motion passed. Okay, thank you, Daniel. Next item is a briefing on the Division of Operations org chart review. George Wright. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Vice Chair Floyd, Mr. Greenwood, Mr. McKinney, and members of the Operations and Safety Committee. As my 15-year-old son would say, I'm super excited to come before the committee today and deliver this briefing on how the Division of Operations is organized. And toward the end of this, you'll see why. Next slide. When we talk about the Division of Operations, it is in fact the largest division within the authority. For FY24, for example, it is authorized to have 3,425 positions. Currently, 3,106 of them are filled, with a vacancy of 319, or a little over 9%. The population of the Operations Division encompasses 70% of the total authorities positions, and as you can see right there, there's the demographic breakdown, female to male. 83% of the population within the division is represented by the ATU, Local 732, and 17% of the population is non-represented, mainly management and administrative staff. You can see the average years of MARTA service is 8 years, and the average age is 48. Regarding the budget for FY24, the operating budget for the Division of Operations is $452 million, which encompasses 71% of the total authority's operating budget. So it's a big enterprise. Next slide. Now, as much as you just heard Daniel come before you and talk about those things that we typically talk about, it's around assets and systems and things like that. But given what I just told you in the previous slide, the Operations Division is a people-centric business unit. And since this is National Inclusion Week, I thought that I would, in fact, mention our employee resource groups that are noted here on the top left of the slide. And right now we have 224 members of the Division of Operations that participate in those ERGs. And, we're really excited about that because these groups, beyond the networking and the career development and the kinship that these groups promote, these are things that further the objectives of what we're trying to accomplish in the Division of Operations. Furthermore, our people in operations are instrumental in promoting the MARTA brand beyond the daily task of taking people where they want to go. So, last Sunday's Atlanta Streets Alive, we deployed and displayed one of our 6 MARTA electric buses, and I live right on Peachtree, so I took a walk up the street to see the bus, and it was really cool to see a nice queue of people wanting to get on the bus, ask questions of staff, and it certainly resonated with that group that went out, walked up and down Peachtree on Sunday. And about 2 weeks ago, the Georgia Tech sponsored the Parking Day event, and that's an international event for individuals and organizations to create spaces designed for people rather than cars, using empty parking spaces. So if you look at that top picture, that's a souped-up go-kart that Daniel's team and bus maintenance built to participate in that event. And with the holidays approaching, operations will be instrumental in deploying those holiday buses that we've been so proud to put out in the public space for, I think, really decades now. Next slide. Now to why I am actually, this is the org chart. This is the for the Division of Operations. The Division of Operations encompasses 4 departments, and I'm going to take an irregular route as I navigate through the org chart right here, but there are 4 departments that make up the division. If we look to the extreme left and right, represented by the nodes that show the Senior Director of Operations Planning and Controls, led by Peter Bruno, who in fact is the sponsor of the MARTA Young Professionals Group, and the far right node representing the Senior Director of Vehicle Procurement. I think everyone here knows Connie Krisak, who is championing the build and delivery of our new rail cars. And then as we move into the middle of the org chart, you'll see, looking toward the right, you've just heard from Daniel Heck, who is our Deputy Chief Mechanical Officer, who leads the Department of Mechanical Operations. And you can see the office-level business units that he is responsible for. Each of these individuals have, over the span of time, have come before this committee to present and seek authorizations for various resolutions. Under Daniel's leadership, this is, and as was indicated in his 2 agenda items, this group will be really instrumental in moving MARTA forward as it expands. Now to the real good part, and why I'm super excited, and I've been grinning ear to ear for the past few weeks. I'm going to make some introductions of some new leaders that have recently joined MARTA. And
sorry, George has been unbearable for the last couple of weeks.
So that's why you'll see these nodes shaded in blue. And they represent recent hires to the team, a couple of months or so. Then we have some brand new members of the executive leadership team within the Division of Operations. And then finally, we have an individual who is not officially on the clock yet, pending notification of the board. But first, I would like to introduce Sansia Wise, and Ms. Wise, if you would just kind of stand up and wave to the committee here. All right. Ms. Wise joined MARTA back in June, and she hails from New York City, and she has worked in the rail industry for about the past 15 years. She actually started working for Bombardier Transportation, and they oversaw the operations and maintenance of the air train at JFK. Then she went on to work at New York City Transit, directing the day-to-day and long-range operations in the stations division. She has been with us, like I said, a couple of months now, and she is definitely making a difference out on the east-west line. So she has operational leadership of the east-west line rail services and the service delivery portion of the streetcar, and we're very happy to have her. Next, we have Richard Gonzalez, but please call him Rick. Rick joined MARTA back on April 17th. He has spent over 20 years in the transit industry with experience in fixed route, paratransit, and on-demand services. He's originally from South Florida, and he has participated in the industry both on the private and public side. He actually hails from, we got him from DART Area Rapid Transit, or DART, and he wanted me to make it known that his daughter has indicated that she likes it here in Atlanta, and it's and he plans on, she plans on her dad staying here for a while. And next we have Dewana Williams, and Dewana is one of those brand new. I think Dewana week 3. and she joined MARTA back on September the 11th. She, if you were to look at her resume, it is a cool story when you look at her resume. I think 20 years of diversified and recognized experience managing cross-functional business processes for public transit organizations. I think your entire transit career was at CATS in Baton Rouge. So it was really intriguing and neat to see that type of story. And you could just watch the progression of her career. Thank you, Duana, and we're very happy to have you. Another note, she, as the director of bus transportation, she is leading the single largest business unit at the office level within the authority, about 1,600 employees. Next, we have Thomas Drost, our Deputy Chief of Bus Operations. All right. Thomas joined MARTA a week after Duana, so she does, in fact, have seniority over you. His journey in the transit industry began back in '99 as a bus operator. And it's really interesting to get to know Thomas and talk with him. And it was the first time that I've heard the industry referred to as a type of science. And so he is definitely intellectually curious, and when you get to know him and speak with him, that really comes out. He started off as, after, I guess, promoting from the bus operator ranks, he went into a management trainee program where he honed his skills and knowledge over time, and a very experienced operator. So with experience in fixed route, bus rapid transit, light rail paratransit, and rental car shuttles. And he has played some instrumental roles in really executing high-profile projects like the Baltimore Link redesign, been involved in some very large-scale special events like the Super Bowl, and so I think he's going to fit right in here in Atlanta. And our final executive leader that is yet to join the team officially, but I wanted to go ahead and introduce her to the committee. This is Benita Gibson, and she is our candidate for Deputy Chief of Rail Operations. Again, another cool story. She has 32 years experience in field operations and logistics. For 16 and a half years, she worked for Union Pacific Railroad, and during that entire time, she was, in operations. She also started her career, her leadership career, in a management training program where she really set some career goals, really framed around high achievement and performance. What also distinguishes Benita's experience is that she was at UP, she was the first and only African-American female executive in operations. Prior to Union Pacific, she worked in two totally different industries. She worked at Citigroup, where her last role was VP of Payment Processing of the Payment Processing Center, and she worked. She was in the tire industry, okay, working for Bridgestone and Firestone, where she was, in fact, the first African-American female to be the assistant plant manager. And where she's really passionate is that she loves to build teams, and is very competitive outside of work. And I think I read somewhere in here where the golf bug has recently bit you, right? Okay. And we are, definitely looking forward to Benita joining the team officially. This is why I'm super excited today. Okay. So, as MARTA advances its vision of people taking people where they want to go, as it advances its organizational priorities, this is the team that will do it. So with that, Vice Chair Floyd, I turn the matter back over to you.
All right, thank you. George, before you sit down, I just make a few comments, and there may be some other board members that want to comment. I continue to be impressed by the professionalism and the dedication of the MARTA people, the MARTA workers, the MARTA people that show up every day to do the job. It just continues to do my heart well to watch what you do, the attention you all pay to it, the joy you get out of doing it, and it shows, quite honestly, and it makes, I think I speak for all the board members when I say it's proud to know that, I mean, it's fun and proud to talk about being part of the MARTA team. So I commend you for these new people, and this is, I mean, I don't know what kind of job they're going to do, but their resumes certainly leave us hopeful, I can tell you that. But, and the ability to attract people like this to the job is another big aspect of what's going on here at MARTA. So I congratulate you for that. George is one of our heroes, to those of you who are new here. George has been doing this for a while, and we rely on him incredibly amount of time and effort that he puts into what he does. And I mean, you ask him a question, and you know you're going to get a good answer out of it, and it may be, I don't know, but you know that's the right answer for him to take at the time. But anyway, George, congratulations to you on these hires. Congratulations to you and the MARTA staff on what you all do. Anyone else? Jim?
Thank you.
Yeah, Collie, thank you for arranging for this to be brought to us when, you know, we keep seeing these new hires. It's good to see how it all fits together. And it must be interesting to be hired, and then a week later your boss is hired. And I want to see Collie and Thomas behind the wheel of a bus showing us that they've still got the chops.
Okay. Jennifer? No, I was just. Oh, okay. Okay. Rod?
Yes, as I tell all those who are new that join us, I hope you have your running shoes on, because we're going to need that as we begin to expand this enterprise. And I'm sure, I can understand why you're excited, George, because it takes a team to build this enterprise that we have, and everybody has to be a part of that. And it's good to have a team with you that's willing to commit to the vision. So great job. And to you also, Collie. I think, once again, we've asked you to lead this enterprise in a way that we can prepare to expand it. And that's what we're trying to do. It's our season, it's our time, and our eyes, all the eyes are on MARTA and what we're going to do as we take this opportunity to expand transit across Georgia. And we just look forward to you. So if anything that I can help you with, you know, we're here to help. All right, so welcome aboard, and thank you. Thank you for all you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, George.
Mayor Floyd, if I can
Oh, sure.
add comment, just, I want to, of course, echo what's been said here, and also point out that, you know, to George, right, there's a lot of pressure when operational issues persist and workforce is not, you know, at peak capacity. And so we've been carrying some vacancies in clearly some key positions throughout the organization. The existing team that has been in place prior to the arrival of these new folks have done an amazing job of keeping it together, keeping things running. And I think there was temptation for George and the rest of the team to kind of accept someone to fill the spot, but that's not what happened. George was meticulous and insistent on a level of quality and a skill set and experience that made the team shine. It wasn't enough to just fill the seat. And so that's why, you know, as the weeks progressed and his smile started to get broader and broader, we started to understand why. So I just want to commend the way you did it. You know, you were knee deep in resumes for a number of months, and held to the standard that, you know, we had assessed that we needed. So equally excited to see this team here, and again, just welcome to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, George. And, you know, sometimes to notice what goes on, and it's the small things or the little things that you see. And I just wanted to comment that this morning, it's a comment from, I don't remember who did it, but it's about, he had written a letter to complain about the trash in the stations. And this letter said, in the last few months, I've noticed a big difference. So obviously, something's going on to improve the appearance of the stations and those kind of things. It's small things like that, and I think that's a compliment. That's a big compliment to the MARTA team as to what you're trying to do and how you're paying attention to those. So I suggest you read that, and if you haven't, because I mean, this guy had no reason to say this, believe me, but anyway, it's just encouraging to do that. And thank you, and welcome to Atlanta. So. And Decatur, if you don't know where Decatur is, I'll be happy to tell you how to get over there and where that is. So, okay, we have a couple of other matters.
East-west line.
East-west line, yeah. We have a couple of other matters. A letter to inform the board of a resolution authorizing the award of a non-revenue vehicle parts contract, RFPP P50390, utilizing the GSA contract. And this is an informational on item, so there's no action required here. Is that, obviously that's true. So you're just letting us know that you're spending money. So, and then also in your packet is the July key performance indicators, and that's informational only. Is there anything else to come before this committee today?
Mayor Floyd, just to clarify, the notification or the, for your information on the general services, it's giving you the heads up that it's going to come back because, you know, that's the process that the board's adopted.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn this meeting and turn it over to somebody else. Oh, Mr. Word.
Meeting to order. First item on the agenda, could I get a motion and a second for approval of the August 24th, 2023 Planning and Capital Programs Committee meeting minutes? So it's been moved by Frida, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, questions of the minutes? Hearing none. Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda, resolution authorizing a modification and contractual authorization for an automated parking and revenue control APARC system, RFP 40193. Mr. Leach?
Good morning, Chair Blakely, members of the Planning and Capital Programs Committee, Mr. Greenwood and Ms. Roca. I'm Kevin Hurley, and I'm here with Eric Leach, Director of Capital Program Delivery, to present a request to authorize a modification to contract P40193, Automated Parking and Revenue Control Systems. Next slide. MARTA solicited the contract in a request for proposals to replace parking and revenue control equipment in 10 of our long-term parking facilities and to provide maintenance for 5 years with the options for an additional 5 years. The board approved for the general manager, CEO, to enter into a contract P40193 in March of 2022 with an initial contract value of approximately $12.7 million. And now I'll turn it over to Eric to discuss the increase in contract modifications in more detail. Next slide.
Thank you, Kevin. So the request for the project's authorization increase has a list of various items that have been determined by the capital programs team when we received the project back in the early 2023. The reason why Kevin and I are co-sharing is that he's got everything previous to when we received it in 23, so we'd want to answer questions from the board to make sure we addressed it fully and completely. The list you see on the screen today has various components such as construction bonding, the vendor's scheduler and their scheduling software within modification number 1, and the vendor's quality and safety managers to oversee the construction along with their overhead costs and some additional pieces of equipment to be deployed supporting the new payment systems in the long-term parking lots in modification number 2. Additionally, we're adding an unforeseen site condition allowance, which this is a MARTA-controlled fund, which is only to be used if the conditions in the field are different than what's expected, and it'll be changes that may be needed during construction to keep the project moving along to completion. Next slide, please. So we've broken down the previous slide into a little more detail to kind of help you out how we've gotten to the dollar amount that we're asking for. We wanted to provide you this breakdown of the costs and the items from that slide. In these items, you can see within modifications 1 and 2, the unforeseen site condition allowance. For clarity, the unforeseen site condition allowance was calculated of 5% of the revised construction value, which does include the 3 items that you see highlighted in modification number 2. This is not the 5% GM's contingency, but a MARTA project team control fund only to be used as needed for site conditions. And to summarize the numbers, the current board authorization is $13,281,345. The current construction value with the proposed modifications from Mod 2, which has the equipment items, brings the total to $10.076 million from the original $9.826 million. The 5% GM contingency that was provided at the original award in 2022 is $633,745.25, of which a portion is being applied to modification 1, which will reduce our overall funding increase request today to $1.663 million. So if this funding increase is approved, the project's revised total award authorization will be $14,944,836.75. Next slide, please. So we're respectfully requesting the Planning and Capital Programs Committee to approve a resolution authorizing a modification in contractual authorization for the Automated Parking and Revenue Control, or the APARC project, RFP P40193, for a value of $14,944,836.75. Next slide.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley and Mr. Leach. Could I get a motion and second from the board to bring this before the committee? Okay. Motion's been moved by Ms. Hardage, seconded by Mr. Durrett. Are there any questions or discussion? Mr. Frierson?
Help me understand, the modification to this here was to include a QC manager and a safety manager. So were they not originally on this contract when it was originally determined, or was?
So originally, the contract, when it was put on the street, was expected to be a plug and play, simply hiring a company that furnishes and installs the equipment to be able to pay for the long-term facilities. We had previous projects that were done through JOC where we put the infrastructure in the ground. So once we got out to the field with that vendor, which was released in March of '22, we found a lot of the field conditions needed some construction items. So while the contract had those items, we basically, during BAFO, they were taken out and left to the side because we really thought it was plug and play and no construction was needed. So the items you see in the modification are essentially adding those back for the dollar amount, because we have found that we do have some construction items that need to be addressed. So we're basically turning it back into a construction project.
Okay. Missed opportunity. So, and in the previous, I'm assuming, the previous vendor, we don't have a relationship with them, and that's why we're making these modifications to move forward with a new one?
No, same vendor. Same vendor from the original contract that was awarded.
Okay.
What we've done is taken that same contract and those items that we've asked in the modifications, we basically, during BAFO from the original award in '22, we just didn't include those costs for bonding and construction, for safety and quality, because again, it was a plug and play. It was taking simple devices built in a factory, putting them in the field, connecting them, turning them on, walking away. But what we're finding is it's actually more than that. We've got a lot of items in the field that didn't really need to be taken out and replaced with new conduit, new fiber, some concrete, and some asphalt. So it's really become more of a construction project.
Okay.
Eric, do you just want to go back to BAFO, best and final offer, and explain the process of reducing the cost?
Absolutely. So when it was put on the street, the idea was truthfully to be a plug-and-play program. So the items, even though they were written into the contract, it was felt at that time that they weren't needed because of the plug-and-play. So we did back up and make sure we had those items of quality and safety and all the types of things we needed. But at best and final offer, we negotiated with the vendor that came who won the award to say we don't need these items because we really think it's a plug-and-play project. So at negotiation, we reduced the overall value, which what the board awarded. And as we got into it, when we were brought in January of '23, we started to look in the field and started to see, wait, we've got some more things we have to put in the ground. So let's go ahead and put these items back in. So what we're really doing is putting the items back in, along with some equipment that was also stricken, as well as some sort of a contingency, the $500,000, the 5%, is to make sure that if we find any additional things as we put items in during construction, we can address it without having to come back to the board to ask for more money.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, how do we decide which lots we charge for and which lots we don't charge for?
That might be a good question. That's all long-term, right? It's all the long-term lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The long-term lots have been active for some time.
What does that mean, long-term, Kevin?
The overnight parking, anything that we charge for parking over 24 hours.
Patrons who want to go to the airport and they park in a long-term lot and they stay for maybe a week while they go on vacation. When they come back, they actually pay for that week that they parked in that lot. And it is a separate, secure lot.
Okay, well, how do you determine whether it's a long-term lot or not then? I mean, because
It's signed, it has gates, and then these new payment systems will be there. So actually, when you pull in, you'll go through a gate, you'll collect a ticket, you keep that ticket. When you leave, you slide the ticket in and you pay for it at the
Okay,
exit.
no, that's not what I'm asking. I
Okay.
understand how a parking lot
Sure,
works.
sure.
What I don't understand is when the decision is made, East Lake is an example, when the decision is made not to charge there, and why?
Well, there's been analysis done over the years that highlighted originally 8 parking lots that had higher activity of long-term parking. And what I mean by that is parking over 24 hours. And so MARTA, at some point in our history, instead of, they've migrated from, in many forms of charging for parking, up to not charging, to charging everybody $1 and sticking $1 into a little hole in a slot, to automated parking at 8 of our facilities for long-term, over 24 hours. And those were selected because of their propensity to have parkers staying overnight. This contract, actually, there's been some growth, so we're putting it into 10 facilities now rather than the original 8. And the contract also allows for expansion. We obviously have to come back to the board to allow expansion, but the software and hardware that we're using would allow further analysis and further opportunities to expand our ability to charge for parking or even rent parking spaces for events. So,
Okay, well, and I guess the question I'm getting at is, you mentioned a board decision about where we charge and who gets charged and who doesn't, and where that is and how that happens. And if you got a lot that's not monitored, I mean, it doesn't have an arm where you go in, how do you determine whether the usage there warrants pay or not?
we have people out in those facilities that understand the volume, that understand the patronage, and it gets looked at periodically. We couldn't do that as frequently because our equipment has gotten so old. We had to get this contract in place, upgrade our equipment, and now we can look at our parking policy. We can look at further expansion of paid parking. We can look at many other opportunities that will be open with the advent of this new equipment. Now, the board would be active in that. They would, if we were to expand it or change the pricing or reduce the timeline to charge, we would have to bring it back to the board to gain their approval to do that sort of thing.
But there's a difference in a charge for 2 hours and 2 days, obviously.
Right now, I believe we're just charging, if you're over 24 hours, this is how much you pay for the day. And then once you trip 48 hours, you pay for another day. So it's, but the future operations could be a little different.
Okay,
We'd have to update the parking policy to do
Okay,
that.
if we do a transit-oriented development on a piece of MARTA property, and they have a vendor that builds the deck, do we monitor that parking also? I mean, because there's signs like Avondale State, there's signs, MARTA parking here, MARTA parking here. But I don't know that there's a charge going into that at all.
Not in our TOD affiliated.
So we don't, you can, if you go into one of those decks, there's no, even though it's on a piece of MARTA property, there's no.
Yes. For example, here at Lindbergh, there's another parking company that has been contracted by the developer to provide parking. So the Sidney Marcus deck back here, the upstairs is run by a different company than the downstairs that's internal to MARTA. The decks behind the buildings across the street, they're run by a third party for the development team.
If I might just, supplement the answer given by Kevin, and one of the where to charge, how much to charge for parking is part of the fare policy that the board has approved, and it is reviewed periodically. Because of COVID, the demand for parking went down precipitously. That's why we did not come back with a new recommendation. What the lots that are being charged now is based on the old policy that was approved by the board pre-COVID. Once the ridership and the demand for parking starts picking up, we will come back to the board to make recommendations based on new information we have, and it's up to the board at that point whether they want to change or add more lots that should be charged or not, based on staff recommendation.
Okay, I guess that's what I'm getting at really
Yeah.
is the understanding of the overall MARTA parking philosophy or program or operation and how that fits in with everything. I mean, like in just for an example, in downtown Decatur, they've approved a hotel down there with no parking. Okay, it's within a block of the MARTA station. The idea is to do that or to utilize other parking. So it would seem to me that, and maybe there is, and I just don't know about it, which is entirely possible, but of an overall MARTA or a program or policy about how to deal with parking, especially in regard to transit-oriented development sites and these decks that are on MARTA property, and how, even though we don't build them, we don't pay for them, who's responsible and how we handle the parking. And that's not a question.
No, I mean, thank you for, there is a policy, and overall, transits all across the U.S., the way they decide whether to charge parking or not, parking should supplement and should be conducive to increasing ridership, not hinder that. In other words, the overall cost for commute, including parking, becomes prohibitive. That's analysis most transits go through in the U.S., and that's analysis, from what I understand, MARTA did go through many years ago, 5, 6 years ago at least, and that's how they determined to charge at 10 parking. But that can always be changed based on new information we have, as and when ridership comes back to pre-COVID levels.
Okay, it might be appropriate to begin to, whoever, first of all, for us to understand who's doing this analysis and that kind of thing. The other thing, I hope this new equipment is like on these managed lanes on DOT, you know, if they get busy, the rate goes from $1 to $20, you know, and that's to keep people off of them or out of them. And there might be a way in our parking analysis, if there's nobody in the lot, it's free. If it gets 60% full, we start charging or something like that.
No, that's been implemented in some of the airports do that too. What called demand pricing. Absolutely. That's something with new equipment that's we can do it if required.
To Raj's point, you know, our parking lot policy is something that was approved by the board, and so any changes that we contemplate would be brought back here. I'll emphasize the philosophy in that our mandate is growing ridership, and parking lots strategically placed will increase that. The policy and the fare collection and the costs may actually play a role in driving ridership down if we're not careful about it, but we will come back with an overall presentation in terms of what that philosophy is and where we're headed with that.
You know, and it appears to me, and this is something I think we've talked about, especially in urban environments over the years, at least the last 30 years anyway, is it parking, somebody's making money off parking. And I don't know who it is, but somebody, maybe it's just the guys that operate the thing, but there got to be some way to control how that happens, and because if parking is free, that may entice more ridership.
Yeah, I mean, part of the overall landscape here is that MARTA benefits from ground leases as well. So if the property is on MARTA, you know, if the parkade is on MARTA property, those ground lease revenues are already being enjoyed by MARTA, but it is part of the overall picture.
Mr. Frierson?
Yeah, I had one more question. So with these parking equipment, these there's no one there. The equipment operates and then you raise the gate and lower the gate. And I would hope that there would be a plan B, because I have been in some of these parking lots where they didn't operate. And you have somebody there trying to get through the gate. They want to pay, something happens, and there's no attendant to talk to. And you could see how it's just frustrating people starting doing things. So I'm sure that's going to be addressed in this equipment as part of the backup and when it comes to that. But I look forward to seeing it because a lot of people do want to use QR codes to scan and do all of the functions as opposed to just to take the ticket. So, all right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions, discussion? If not, please vote. Motion has passed. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda, resolution authorizing a modification and contractual authorization for the professional services for payment and booking system for art and transit vendors, LOA L 44267. Ms. Catherine Durga, Director of Arts and Transit.
Good morning, Chair Blakely, Mr. Greenwood, Ms. Roca, members of the committee. Can you all hear me okay? Great, thank you. I'm Catherine Durga. I'm the director of MARTA's Art and Transit program called Artbound, and I am here to present today this resolution regarding our payment and booking system for vendors. Go to the next slide, please. So just for background, Artbound was established in 2017 by the Board of Directors and with the purpose of enhancing customer experience and providing sense of ownership in the system. We do schedule around 160 plus performances a year. This includes everything from live music to theater and dance in different stations throughout the system. Currently, we are using a Jobble software platform. That's an app that musicians can both book themselves in to a list of options, stations, and times. The app also allows us to track them, so when they check in, we know that they're actually at the station that they're supposed to be playing at. They check out, so we know that they're leaving and the proper timing. And then that app also provides payment to the artists after they've played, direct deposit to their bank account. So this, basically, the purpose of this is to alleviate the administrative stress of processing hundreds of invoices, potentially dozens a month on procurement and accounts payable. Our term with this contract with Jobble will end soon here in December. We do need to modify it in order to provide more budget to the app, the contract with Jobble. We also need to extend the time, and we'd like to kind of basically add a year and add the budget for a year so that we can rebid the contract. Basically, we are 4 years in with Jobble at this point. We've been using them a while. The reason that we've been using them for so long is because during the pandemic, we weren't scheduling as many live performances. So although I do think we will probably rebid it and come back to Jobble, I think, it's a wise idea to go ahead and just make sure we're with the right company. So at this time, if you could go to the next slide. At this time, we're requesting to add 1 year and $131,000 to the existing contract for Jobble. And just to remind, 75% of that is going directly back to the musicians. So we're paying a service fee for that service, but the total is about $131,000. And go to the next slide. So I'm respectfully requesting this resolution authorizing a modification for the contractual authorization of professional services for payment and booking for our art and transit vendors. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Catherine. Can I get a motion in a second, please? Is it showing up? Oh, it's back up. moved by Ms. Harder, seconded by Mr. Pond. Are there any questions or discussion for Ms. Catherine? Great. Seeing none, let us vote. Resolution passes. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, resolution authorizing the adoption of the fiscal year 2024 Bus, Rail, and Mobility Service Standards Report by Mr. Derek Cole, Director of Policy Planning.
Good morning, Committee Chair Blakely, members of the committee, Mr. Greenwood, and Ms. Roca. My name is Derek Hall, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Policy Planning. And the item before the committee is a resolution to adopt fiscal year 2024 Bus, Rail, Mobility Service Standards Report. This effort is an effort that we do across several departments in MARTA, including our operations department, bus, rail, mobility, members of our planning department, as well as individuals in our research and analysis division. The standards report, by way of background information, establishes the criteria and processes for evaluating existing transit services and proposed changes to the MARTA services. Next slide, sorry. It assumes more equitable and fiscally responsible approaches to maximize the services that we provide as a transit organization. It ensures MARTA provides transit services that are consistent with federal and state mandates. And finally, it affords transit services for patrons with disabilities who may otherwise not be able to utilize MARTA's fixed route system for travel needs. Next slide. As it relates to the guiding principles of the Service Standards Report, we do have evaluation criteria that we look at, which includes the maximization of ridership, service quality and effectiveness, sustaining equitable access to and connectivity across the entire service area, minimizing adverse impacts on our paratransit services, managing transit resources and passenger amenities to enrich the transit experience, and finally, maintaining safety and security from our patrons' origin to destination. Next slide. There are two areas that we look at as it relates to the evaluation of our service standards. When routes fall below the average, we may consider as an agency looking at reducing service hours to address the below average of the tier service. We may also consider adjusting route frequencies or assigning a new service tier altogether. Conversely, when routes are performing above their average, we may look to extend service hours, increase the route frequency, assign higher capacity vehicles, or even assign a new service tier. Next slide. Before considering any type of change to the services that MARTA provides, we undergo, as you can imagine, an extensive public hearing requirement process, and this includes engagement with our patrons, with the community as it relates to any of these different types of service changes, including our new service implementation, any major route alterations, if there is a greater than 25% change in the daily number of trips, if there are any non-emergency discontinuation of services, or if there are any proposed fare changes. So in addition to our general service standards table providing rail, heavy rail, light rail, the different modes of our bus transit, and then our mobility services, we also prioritize patron safety and security for such activities including our emergency events, large-scale and special events, and potential detours, and contracted services. So these are other considerations that we can consider as it relates to looking and preparing the Service Standards Report. As it relates to last year's service standards report, we have updated the current report to include some new additions. As many of you know, and we're happy to be a part of this construction process with Summerhill BRT, we have now indicated in our service standards table a coming soon icon for both bus rapid transit and arterial rapid transit for MARTA. In addition, as service has picked up, we have changed the illustration for heavy rail to include 12-minute peak, 15-minute off-peak, and this is a change from last year when we had recommended 15-minute and 20-minute service time frames for heavy rail. Last slide. So with that, staff is recommending adoption of the fiscal year 2024 bus, rail, and mobility service standards, and staff is here for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hull. Could I get a motion and a second, please, to bring this before the committee? Moved by Ms. Harnage. Can we get a second? Seconded by Mr. Worthy. Are there any questions for Mr. Hull? Mr. Pine.
For our mobility contract that we outsource, do we incorporate these standards going forward and tie that back into the metrics of their contract from a performance standpoint? I know we have some of that in place, but I'm just talking out loud about best path forward.
Yes. I'm going to ask Mr. Wright to come up. During the exchange of preparing this, we did have some conversations about the current contract. Hello, Mr. Pond. The short answer is yes, we would. And certainly as we look to solicit a new RFP, and we're coming up on that with mobility, we would certainly plumb that into any contract or future contract with the providers. Okay.
Any additional questions for Mr. Hall? Seeing none, let us vote. Resolution has passed. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Next item on the agenda, resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with the City of Atlanta for the Department of Watershed Management in support of the Summerhill BRT project by Mr. Ajay Joshi. AJ, good morning.
Good morning there. Good morning, Chair Blakely, Mr. Greenwood, Ms. Rocha, and members of the board, members of the committee. Today I will be requesting authorization to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Atlanta for the Department of Watershed Management in support of the Summerhill BRT project. Next slide, please. So just to provide a few highlights of the actual IGA itself, the scope includes relocation and adjustment of water infrastructure along the Summerhill BRT alignment. So essentially anything that's within the limits of construction, such as hydrants, water mains, other water infrastructure that needs to be moved, would be covered under the scope of this IGA. The IGA establishes a not-to-exceed budget of $1.5 million, and the IGA also provides MARTA some abilities. So one of the abilities, it includes the ability to review any proposed utility plans prior to their acceptance, and then we also have the ability to understand if any changes were made to that IGA or to the scope of the utility relocation. So we have an opportunity to discuss those changes. It also provides us the ability to inspect during construction and to do a final inspection upon completion of construction. So with this IGA, we are also kind of setting this as a model as we move forward with additional BRTs and ARTs, just so we have a little bit more collaboration between us and our constituencies. So With that, next slide, please. Kindly request the board to enter into a IGA agreement with the City of Atlanta for the Department of Watershed Management in support of the Summerhill BRT project.
Thank you, AJ. Could I get a motion in a second, please? Moved by Ms. Ide, seconded by Mr. Worthy. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Pond?
Could you clarify for me, is this separate from the contract that we have in place to build the system?
To build the Summerhill BRT system?
Yes.
It's an agreement between us and Department of Watershed Management. So yes, it would be a separate IGA just between us and City of Atlanta Department of Watershed Management because they're a utility.
But the same contractor is doing the work?
No. So Department of Watershed Management does all their
That's what I
work.
asked. Okay,
Yes,
got it.
that's correct.
Mr.
Quick
Farson?
question, why is this necessary? Did I cut you off, Rod? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Why is this necessary?
Well, Department of Watershed Management is its own utility. Being that it is its own utility, we have entered into agreements with all of our utilities specific to Department of Watershed Management. We just want to make sure we have touch points as we go along and basically are we're reimbursing all of their work, right? And we wanted to have a little bit of cost control in place because with Department of Watershed Management specifically for, their approach to certain designs, we'd like an opportunity to take a look at their design, make sure that if they're going to make any changes to that design because it has a direct impact to our budget, we wanted to have this government IGA in place so we would be aware of that prior to making those reimbursements.
That makes perfect sense. I don't think it'll work, but it makes perfect sense.
Wow. Mr. Farson?
Yeah, I had my question had to do also with, so the City of Atlanta will do the work. You'll be somewhat in the room overseeing the decisions that they're making concerning their movement of the lines and all the utilities.
Correct.
And we pay them for this. Eventually, they're going to send us a bill for the work that they finish.
That's correct. So, we budget for utility relocates as part of any of our programs. They will be providing us their planned approach. We'll have an opportunity to take a look at that planned approach. If it makes sense with our design, then we will give them that feedback. And if it seems like they're going to start to scope into other areas that may not be appropriate for our alignment, we would have an opportunity to discuss that before they make those changes.
Okay, because that's what usually happens is you start digging underground and you realize that there are other things that you didn't understand and the connections are not all there when you anticipated.
Yeah, so, from a control standpoint, but also from just a budgeting standpoint, we wanted to understand the costs.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad to see that once again, I hope this is a good template for us to use as we go forward because there'll be a number of projects that will require us to do the same thing, correct?
Absolutely.
All right.
Any additional? Ms. Scott, I'm sorry.
For clarification, I think that this was answered by the questions from my fellow board members, but this is only in regards to moving water mains, sewer manholes, fire hydrants that affect the BRT.
Correct.
Where the BRT will run, correct?
That is correct. It's within limits of construction to facilitate the project scope.
Thank you.
Okay, I fully support this. This is definitely a best practice going forward. How much contingency do we have built into this? Do you know?
Right now, I believe we're at 30%, 35% actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good number. Okay, any additional questions? Can we take the vote?
I just wanted to make sure it didn't have anything to do with the truck that fell through at Publix.
No, it does not.
I believe the motion's passed. Can I just go ahead and? I think it's passed. Resolution is passed. Thank you, AJ.
All right, thank you.
Teresa? Next item on the agenda, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of the automated fare collection, AFC, System 2.0, RFP P50189. Mr. Adam McGavick, Project Manager.
Good morning, Chair Blakely, Vice Chair Powers, Mr. Greenwood, Mrs. Rocha, and members of the Planning and Capital Programs Committee. My name is Adam McGavick. I'm the Program or Project Manager for the AFC 2.0 project. I'm here seeking your authorization to award the contract for AFC 2.0. Next slide. So just as a reminder, what is AFC 2.0? It's a full replacement of MARTA's existing and outdated Breeze Card and Breeze Mobile systems. And we're looking to deliver a reliable, customer-focused fare collection system that is easy to use, supports equity, and regional mobility. Next slide. So this is a comprehensive scope here. It's replacing all of the hardware, all of the gates, all of the fare boxes, all of the ticket vending machines, platform validators, all of the software. The new Breeze mobile system is going to be on the same platform as the Breeze card, which is a new change, which is a vast improvement. It also includes 5 years of software licensing, software maintenance, hardware and software, hardware frontline support, support services, and 5 optional years. And most importantly, it includes a provision for regional operators to join in. Currently, we have Cobb, Gwinnett, and Clayton counties. We have it set up so that other regional operators can buy in and join the system in the future. Next slide. So we issued a procurement, the RFP, on March 9th. We got 5 responsive proposals. The technical evaluation team narrowed that down to 3, which were forwarded to the source evaluation committee. They shortlisted 2 proponents who were brought in for oral presentations. And on August 23rd, the SEC made a recommendation to award the contract to Innit Incorporated of Chesapeake, Virginia. Next slide. Why Innit? What drove our selection? They had the highest technical rating. They had the lowest price. They've deployed similar solutions in the last 5 years in similar sized cities: Portland, San Diego, Seattle, Tampa. They have a demonstrated proficiency with integrating third-party solutions via APIs. That's very important to us. And when we talked to their customers gave them really high marks for innovation, responsiveness, and integrity. Next slide. So what are we getting here? What are our customers getting? These are not, by the way, the exact gates that we will be buying. That's going to be decided during the design process. But I can tell you the new gates will be faster, more reliable, and safer. Next slide. I could go on for a long time about all the improvements in the ticket vending machines. Every agency who operates ticket vending machines, those are the biggest source of customer complaints. These new ticket vending machines are going to be a huge improvement. I'll give you one example. If you have $20, a $20 bill, and you want to load $3, you can get your change in bills, as opposed to 2 pounds of coins swinging around in your pocket. That's a huge improvement, trust me. Next slide. The fare boxes. This is something. I would direct your attention to the current MARTA fare box on the left. Do you see that greenish rectangle, that sad little customer display? Can anybody tell me what that says? Yeah, most customers can't read it either. It's hard to read it in sunlight, and it's impossible to read it in the dark. The new fare box is on the right. That's a 7-inch high-contrast color display. That's how we're going to welcome our bus customers every morning. It's a huge improvement. But we're not just talking about hardware. Next slide. Big jump in convenience for credit debit customers. You don't have to buy a Breeze card anymore. You can just go straight to the fare box, straight to the gate, tap your credit card or Apple Pay or Google Wallet and ride. That's going to shorten the lines at ticket vending machines. It's going to reduce the barrier to entry. Every transit agency in America is trying to get people back to riding their service. So make it as easy as possible for them. Reduce the barriers. That's what we're doing here. Next slide. Cash customers, even bigger improvements in store for them. So if you're a cash customer and you don't happen to live near a rail station, how do you load your Breeze card? So what we're doing now is we're going to have 240 plus retail locations where a customer can take their Breeze card and load it in the checkout line. Give the cashier $5, they scan the back of your card, and by the time you get out the door, it's available for use. This is going to be a huge convenience for the cash bus customers. And again, it's going to shorten the lines at the ticket vending machines. Next slide. we want to get this out there in front of customers as quickly as possible, so we have a very aggressive schedule. We also want to have the BRT solution in time for the Summer Hill opening, and we want to have at least partial system availability for the World Cup. We're trying to get this done in time for the World Cup. So with that in mind, next slide, I'm asking for your approval to award this contract to Innit Incorporated of Chesapeake, Virginia. I've provided some basic information on the project funding and the budget. We have a 26% DBE goal overall, 25% for construction, and we're going to be seeking reimbursement for all eligible expenses via federal grants at an 80-20 match with 20% local funding. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Adam, for this exciting update. Can I get a motion and a second, please? Moved by Ms. Ives, seconded by Mr. Floyd. Questions and discussion?
I think it might be appropriate if you talk a little bit about how long you've been thinking about this. When you started and to today.
Excellent point, sir. So this really started, I mean, Rhonda, I don't know, Rhonda, you were probably starting in 2019, but there were site visits. There were ConOps was produced in 2019 or 2020. Research of other systems. The consultants were hired in 2021 to start the process of developing estimates, the goals, the objectives, the customer journey mapping. This is the conclusion of a 4-year process, literally, to get to this point. And I mean, you know, I just started just about 6 months ago, so I can't take any credit, and I can also say they did a tremendous job on this, and I'm very happy to be working with them.
Ms. Hardage?
I'm just going to say, I've been on the board since 2013, and we've been talking about this since then. So I'm not sure about the contracts and awards and all that, but this has been going on for a little bit longer than 4 years, I think. But good job.
Mr. Frierson?
Yeah, the new machines that you're talking about putting in, the new fare boxes,
yeah,
where are they located now in other transportation systems? That we
you mean are other agencies using those fare boxes?
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
sir. These are they're made by a company called GenFare Incorporated. GenFare was a subcontractor on pretty much every proposal, and yeah, these are the latest generation of their fast fare boxes.
Okay, and I'm just curious, do they have any fare boxes in Orlando, Florida, or in other places? I know we've been visiting some cities, and I haven't seen these.
Yeah, I don't believe those fare boxes. I think
Jacksonville?
there would probably be. I'm trying to think of the most recent procurements for fare boxes, because again, this is the latest and greatest from GenFare.
Okay.
But there, I will say this, there's a pretty good chance if you saw an agency with, I think the current fare boxes are at least 12 or 15 years old.
All right.
You would see improvements, but the big screen, is relatively new. As you can tell, I'm pretty thrilled about that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Pond?
This is a massive transition from one day you're under the old system, the next day you're under the new system. So I'd be interested to know just a concise version of how we change this over. I mean, it's all in 24 hours. I mean, it is huge coordination problems.
So I'm going to try to not keep you all here for too long, but it is a lengthy process. So, for example, the rail system. The rail system will be done in phases. We'll have to have parallel operations for at least some period of time on the rail system because, to your point, you can't simply go in and tear out all the rail gates overnight and replace them, especially here at MARTA where you have gates distributed all around the stations. It's a phenomenal arrangement. It's great for customers, but it does complicate things a little bit. But I'm quite confident that we can manage the 2 phases on the rail system. On the bus side, honestly, I'm not sure exactly how that can be done. I have personally been involved with a replacement of 300 fare boxes in one weekend at one garage. I know you have a lot more than 300 buses, but I think it's quite possible that we might be able to do it all in one weekend. But again, it's going to take some discussions with the vendor and with the MARTA team to decide what's the best approach on that. But it is certainly, without question, the solicitation is nothing compared to the challenge of the implementation and the transition. That is by far the biggest lift.
So, when you're phasing this, the old cards will work, the old system will work before the new equipment is installed in those locations, right?
Correct. Yes. There is no backwards compatibility, unfortunately. When you see me a year from now, I probably won't have any hair left, honestly.
And along those same lines, in regards to training our staff, the station managers, the bus operators, will they also be trained in phases to ensure that, you know, if there are any on-site issues, that they can address them quickly?
Yeah, the training is absolutely included, and yes, we are going to ensure that we don't train them 9 months before they need it, right? We want to phase the training to make sure that it coincides with the new system operation that they're going to be involved with. Yes, that is a very good point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. No additional questions? Discussion, let us vote. The resolution has passed. Thank you so very much. Next item on the agenda is a briefing for the Breeze Mobile 2.0 Regional Expansion by Mr. Charlie Jackson, Senior Director of Customer Experience Innovation. Charlie?
Good afternoon. I'll try to be very brief, but it is a follow-up to the AFC 2.0. We talked about another fare system. So good afternoon, Chair Blakely, Mr. Greenwood, Ms. Rocha, and members of the committee. I just want to give you a real brief briefing on an update on the Breeze Mobile 2.0, which is our mobile fare system, which we relaunched here in April. Next slide, please. I just want to talk about where we've been, where we are today, and where we're going in the future. Next slide. So the original Breeze mobile application went live in September of 2020. It was replaced by a new version with some enhanced capabilities this April. And beginning in this September and October, we began expanding it to our regional partners as well, so that all of our riders within the 4-county area would be using the same mobile system now to access all of the rides, not only in our system, but on their systems as well. Next slide. Some of the features that came along with the updated Breeze Mobile that we launched in April were faster service, particularly on our buses, but also at our fare gates. Pay-as-you-go, being able to pay with your Google and Apple wallets. And now we also can use near-field communications for those who have iPhones, so that, for example, if you have your Apple Watch, you can just get near the gate and it will let you through. And of course, we support regional transfers, so it's a seamless operation just like we have with our Breeze cards and with our regional partners. Next slide. What to expect next? We expect to see continued growth in the use of mobile, which is good because it will take some of the pressure off of our ticket vending machines and our Breeze cards. We expect to see this continue to grow with our employees, with mobility customers, reduced fare customers. And eventually, we'd like to see it integrated into MARTA On To Go so that all of our trip planning and all of our other features and our fare features are all in one mobile app. And then we're going to continue enhancements as we move towards AFC 2.0, which was just discussed here. Right now, we have 2 separate systems. We've got Breeze Mobile run by 1 vendor, and we've got our Breeze system run by 2 vendors, and we'd like to see those all in one system on the back end once we deploy AFC 2.0. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Chair Blakely.
Thank you, Charlie. Are there any questions for discussion? Rita?
So occasionally, you know, we have those little round-trip cards that we give customers for different occasions. How is that going to work in the future? Will those still be available if needed, or how does that work?
So you're talking about the paper cards that we use today?
Yeah, or they
Yeah.
look like little credit
Yeah.
cards. I don't know, but I mean, I don't know if that's something that we have a different system that'll work for that, or how that would.
So we're already using our Breeze Mobile system for special promotions and events, and we're going to continue to do that in the future. So that depending on, say, who we're working with, say, for example, right now with the city of Atlanta, they're deploying 1,000 Breeze Mobile passes to all of their, well, to 1,000 of their
Okay,
employees.
so it can just be transferred electronically then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? No? Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for that update.
All right. Hopefully that was quick enough and you can get to lunch. Thanks.
Indeed, thank you. And if there are no further items for discussion, I will call the Planning and Capital Programs Committee meeting to a close. Thank you.